I struggle with bringing this up in casual conversation. You know, those videos that I sent you from over the summer, Jimmy, we were literally sitting, 8 of us, casual dinner. You could hear a pin drop, and then these lights showed up, and my crew. I mean, they're my crew. Like, we bleed for each other, but we have different interests. So when I'm like, oh look, oh my God, look at that. Are you guys looking? Look, you can see that in my voice.
I can see it.
From the video, I'm like, oh my God, a UFO. They're like, bro, get out of here. That's a helicopter. That's a drone. That's a plane. And they went through, the multiple choice question of what it could be. I was waiting for someone to say swamp gas or ball lightning. You know what I mean? To rehearse these intelligences through ESP, because they don't have mouths. They're not talking. Does that mean we have that capability, or are we only receiving? Right? Can we do that the other way around? I think if you sat and like picked apart all of these pieces, I think it would be the most beautiful dish. If you were a chef, like I'm trying to put together all of the ingredients. There's the people that have said this is a religious thing, and then there's the people that say this is a scientific thing, and then there's the people that say it's a cross between the two. And I think if you put all of that together, there's a consciousness piece. You didn't get that technologically advanced being violent, and if they were, man, we wouldn't be here. We were talking theology, so it was very a mature crowd, older than me. My mentor was there. I studied under him for 10 years, and we were talking theology, comparative theology, very spiritual conversation, and triangle shaped 3 points of light showed up, and not a stone's throw. Like, it wasn't even, I would say, 100 yards from where we were sitting. Like I told you when we were interacting, and then it changed shape.
The following is a conversation with Hattem Mattar. There are some conversations that I have with people that I just don't seem to be on the same wavelength with. Whilst the conversations are engaging and interesting, and I find significant value in, there's just that lack of connection. This interview isn't one of them. Me and Hattem are on the exact same wavelength, and he was so much fun. It was like 2 old friends that haven't seen each other for a couple of weeks, but get together and just talk about UFOlogy until the cows come home. A fantastic, fascinating, interesting, hyper energetic, super intelligent guy. Now, Hattem is a businessman, he's a martial artist, he's a farmer, he's a father. There is literally no end to this guy's talents. Now, in this interview, we dive into Hattem's own experiences, the cultural differences in UFO, UAP subjects. We speculate on cases and disclosure and what UAP may represent. So, the following is a conversation with Hattem Mattar.
From looking at you, whenever I speak to somebody, I always like have a look. It's almost stalkerish, really. So I apologize, but I kind of look through your social media, just see what, get an idea of what you're about. And like martial arts and
Yes, sir.
Business owner and farmer and dad, and how, there's just so much there to unpick.
Yeah.
And am I right in thinking like first Arab pit master you've
Correct.
got on your
That's
social
correct.
media?
That's correct.
Dude, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You've got a lot going on.
Yeah, we
Okay.
actually, I left a very promising career in oil and gas. Was the vice president of a multi-billion-dollar oil and gas company, and then kind of not fell into it, but like I wasn't barbecuing to turn this into a business. But I'm sure you've had barbecue, smokestack, and where are you in the UK, by the way?
Lincolnshire, which is kind of in the Midlands.
Okay, but there's some legit smokehouses in the UK. I actually cooked in London 2 years ago at Metopia at the Tobacco Docks. I think I was the second Arab chef to show up there. So I was just doing it because I loved it, and then it turned into this whole thing that you see in front of you on social media. So totally by accident, but I love doing it.
Yeah, man. So you've got like a farm as well? Do you run like a farm?
Yeah. I'm actually talking to you from the farm. I live on a farm that's in the middle of the city. I built it to actually get away from the city. I'm not a city kid. We've got chickens, ducks, goats. I have a half donkey, half zebra. I have a half donkey, half thoroughbred. And what else do we have? We have our own bees. We grow our own fruits and vegetables come planting season around November, and then everything dies literally and figuratively because of the oppressive heat in May, I would say. And we're still in the middle of that. Like, yes, 3 days ago it was 47 degrees Celsius, if you could believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard. That's
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
be difficult.
Nothing happens during those months. It's like a 9-month fiscal year and a 9-month outdoor year, and then it's like the AC of your house to the AC of your car to the AC of your office. You know what I mean? Because you can't be outside.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, you got it. You can't live without AC.
No,
You know.
way. No way. I don't know how they did it. I mean, I've been here 26 years. It wasn't this hot when we were kids, but I don't know how they did it back in the day, like pre AC, pre electricity. I don't know how they did it. They were just made of sterner stuff than you and I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Must have been.
Yeah.
Must have been.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Well, look. Let's. At my house. So you said you've only been there. So you've not been there your whole life. When did you kind of move over?
I'm Egyptian born. I was born in Alexandria, a coastal city of Alexandria, and then grew up here, university in Canada, and then came back here for work.
Okay, I was going to say you got like a very American accent.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
everyone sounds American to me. You know,
no, but you're right. I went to British school. Sorry, I went to French school, then British school until year 8, and then American school, and then Canadian university.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. Okay. Well, look. Let's jump into sort of subjects of UFOs, if that's okay, and hopefully we can kind of circle back to sort of some of your life there as well. But
Yeah.
Obviously, when I see people kind of interacting in this sort of UFO online space, I see lots of different people with different kind of backgrounds and different parts of the world, different sort of socioeconomic, just everybody's interested. And there's this common theme that like it's just in America and it's the sightings are in America. And it's only Americans that talk about it. I'm like, I talk to people from everywhere, from absolutely everywhere. Is it what's the subject like where you are? Are people talking about it?
I struggle with bringing this up in casual conversation. You know, those videos that I sent you from over the summer, Jimmy, we were literally sitting, 8 of us, casual dinner. You could hear a pin drop, and then these lights showed up, and my crew. They're my crew. Like we bleed for each other, but we have different interests. So when I'm like, oh look. Oh my God, look at that. Are you guys looking? Look, you can see that in my voice from the video. I'm like, oh my God, a UFO. They're like, bro, get out of here. That's a helicopter. That's a drone. That's a plane. And they went through, the multiple choice question of what it could be. I was waiting for someone to say swamp gas or ball lightning. You know what I mean?
I can see it.
Script. It doesn't actually come up in casual conversation. My previous experience, to be honest, was also in a group setting. We were in kind of it was like a mentorship program. We were talking theology. So it was very a mature crowd, older than me. My mentor was there. I studied under him for 10 years. And we were talking theology, comparative theology, very spiritual conversation. And triangle shaped 3 points of light showed up, and not a stone's throw. Like it wasn't even, I would say, 100 yards from where we were sitting. Like I told you when we were interacting, and then it changed shape, totally quiet, and then boom, just disappeared. And so I was like, oh my God, we all just had. This was my first, and this was, I would say, 7 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, we all just had a group UFO experience. They're like, bro, get out of here. And I'm like, what do you think it was? They're like, oh, it was Jinn. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And they had a very religious, theological view on something that we all saw. I thought science, in quotations, I'm doing air quotes, but I thought this is the UFO phenomenon. They thought we just had a religious experience. I thought we had a scientific extraterrestrial experience. You know what I mean? Like a close encounter of the second kind. And I think there's a lot of people that are super interested in it. I think there's astigmatism, like everywhere. for bringing it up in casual conversation, even as a question. But it's not a conversation that you have at the water cooler at the office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Did you, so when you had that experience with other people, like how many people were there, would you say?
So the one this summer was 10, and all of us saw it, and two of my friends came. That's the guy I was yelling at. I'm like, look, he's like, there it is. And I'm like, I can see it. And there was 10 of us. Some of the people were so uninterested, they didn't even get up, you know? And on the way home, I was asking the people that were with me, I'm like, why didn't people have the same reaction that I did? And they're like, they don't believe what you believe, or they don't think what you think, you know? And then the other one was probably more. It was like 60. Our group was 16 or 17 strong. So it was a group of us that all saw the same thing. And then I guess because of background or cultural exposure to the phenomenon, some people were totally interested. Some people, I think, part of it, I don't know, tell me what you think, Jimmy. I think some people were too nervous to say, oh my God, this is what it was, right? Someone said that to me. She was like, by the way, maybe they think exactly the same thing you did, but it goes so far outside the norm for them, you're kind of shattering their reality. So if they're like, oh my God, I just had it, then you have to contend with waking up the next morning, oh my God, there's something else out there. You know what I mean? So a lot of people didn't react the way I reacted because I'm comfortable with it. And some people were like, I don't want to think about this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And people like 20 years later will talk about something that they experienced 20 years ago. It's like, I had this experience, I thought it was weird, and this is like the first time I'm talking about it 20 years later. And you're like, they're the same people, you know, they're the same people. And it's,
I think
that's the thing.
Now, with what's happening now, it's becoming more mainstream, but it is still fringe.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, there's still the stigma there. It's still the, you know, if you're considering that this is something that isn't conventional, then there's something not quite right with you.
Yeah,
like, but we all saw this thing.
Yeah, you're a kook. If you bring this up, what do you think it is? I think it's aliens. What? You're a kook. There's no such thing as aliens. You just watch too much TV. And I'm like, no, actually, there probably is. But I think there's a lot there to unpack. But and I don't know, like you said, I think the Americans have a monopoly on it because of pop culture. But this happens, I think, everywhere on the planet. And you know, China a couple of days ago over the airport, the Virginia incident that James Fox covered in his documentary in Brazil, Rendlesham Forest in the UK with you guys, the Russians, the French, everybody's got something, but the only stuff that gets press is the US, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're completely right. And there's cases. I mean, you could literally type into Google an area of anywhere in the world and plus a UFO, and you'll find something. Right. You know, you'll find something. I did Tom Vernon, who does a lot of the sort of podcasts with me and co-host. He did a documentary on school sightings, and you know, we kind of. Say again, sorry.
The Zimbabwe one, or specifically schools?
Yeah. Just in general. So school sightings all over the world. And in my head, I thought there's probably about 3 or 4 big cases that I'm aware of. Yeah. And then we were talking it through, and there was like 30 or 40 of these big cases. I'm like, I didn't know about any of these, you know. Wow. Then he did a sort of documentary covering all of them, but it's just it's incredible. Where is the documentary? He's on YouTube, so it's Tom Vernon UAP.
Okay, I'll find it.
Yeah, and he was within the last few weeks, maybe last 3 weeks, he's put it out, and it just covers. You know, Tom goes into a lot of detail on his documentaries and lots of sort of interviews and clips and news articles and things like that. But just fascinating cases. But a lot of these are like lost in history, aren't they? If we don't talk about them, it's like, well, you know, it's like the Foo Fighters. I was talking to a pilot. It's actually going to air in a few hours, but I was talking to a Brazilian guy who's an airline pilot, and he. You know, he's experiencing what are essentially like the Foo Fighters, like they experienced during World War II. Yeah, and it's like they're still around, but people are like, Foo Fighters aren't a thing. I'm like, no, they were. They were a thing.
100%. And I think the Antioquia video you just posted, with the disc that flies by super quick, right? And there's the guy that got the cube right out of his plane at 30,000 feet. You know, the cube that's changing shape over the clouds.
Yeah.
First it was just radar data, and you don't have that unless you did a Freedom of Information Act, right? But now there's guys with camera phones. Even the fighter pilot out of the F-18 that took a picture in his rear view of that. It's not really clear, but nowadays with the camera phone thing, especially during daylight, and from people who are aviators, those guys are kind of like blowing the lid off the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's wonderful, and it is. You know, we're gonna see a massive difference because of the equipment that's available, but like the price of the equipment, like it's improving.
Yeah.
Like I got sent a telescope, so it's like a digital telescope, but something like that maybe 2 or 3 years back would have cost thousands. You know, you can literally connect it to your phone, set it up in the garden, and it kind of moves around and points up, and it's connected to kind of like, you know, star system data, and it can just zoom in, and it's got like a UFO mode where it just looks for moving objects. Locks on and zooms in.
It's got a UFO mode.
Yeah, only I'm like kind of testing it at the moment, so it's going to be released soon. But I've kind of got a bit of a jump start on that because they've been very nice to me. But yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's the same with like a bird tracking mode, similar kind of technology where it would.
Yeah,
but like with a telescope attached, amazing. But the point is, like that tech's like £500, whereas go back a few years, you're looking at thousands. So you know, it's opening it up to just the average everyday person that can't afford, you know, thousands of dollars, pounds, whatever for kit. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Even like the pilot that I spoke to before, who's the podcast that's coming out tonight, he's got like loads of footage, and he was saying a lot of his friends who are also pilots, like, what do we do with it other than share it with each other on WhatsApp? You're like, what? You know, there's nowhere to report this.
How come they're not sharing it? Like, why don't they come forward with it if there's so much of it?
I mean, from what he was saying, there's the stigma side to it. You know, people, you're a serious person. You're taking people on their holidays and on business trips, and you know, to think that you're out there.
Yeah, this is their business.
Yeah. So I think that's probably part of it. Although it's not like I can't imagine it's against the policy to see something and film it or take a photo out the window, because you know all pilots do that. But I guess it's just the stigma that goes with it. You know, like, well, you're a serious person if you believe in this stuff. And, you know,
I think some of the video that's out there, you know, the New York Times one that everybody talks about, the Tic Tac, the one, the Puerto Rico one that goes underwater and it was only showing up on the FLIR camera. I was just showing it to a friend of mine yesterday. I think some of that stuff is like bottom of the barrel, what they have. And if they have that on the FLIR and on the infrared, I'm sure they have, Jimmy, like not just high def, they have like 132,000 million megapixel clear color video of that thing. But I think if they released that instead of the grainy black and white, I think people would lose their minds. I think they've got more stuff than they can actually release. I think they are the collective, they, you know, in quotations. But I think there's legit stuff that out there that if it came out, I think we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It would be front page CNN, you know. And I don't know what the after effects, and I think that needs discussion. But I think that kind of content exists all over the world with the layman and with the authorities.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, they say that they've got like satellites in space that can literally read your text message.
It's
yeah.
No, didn't you hear they have satellite high def color photos of these things over the earth?
Oh, yeah.
And apparently there's one they've got the same thing but underwater.
Yes, there's a recent case. I don't know if it was a recent case, but they started talking about it recently. This massive thing, the size of like an oil rig. Yeah, just a huge thing.
Jeez.
I mean, yeah, we need to see some of that. You know,
I know, and I think it's just around the corner, and all of the people that were, you know, the Paul Helliers, the Lonnie Zamoras, the Jesse Marcells, all of those guys that were the outliers under the umbrella of authority. And they were like just laughed off, you know, they're like, oh, that guy's a kook, that guy's a kook, that guy's a kook. The guy that did that was part of the Minutemen defense system where you know, that UAP or UFO, I still say UFO. I don't know why they had to change the acronym, for God's sake. But you know what I mean? but the one that showed up to the missile system and rendered all of the nuclear warheads inert. When that guy came out and said, listen, this is a question of national security, they're like, you get out of here, you kook. But I think there's those guys more and more, under authority or not, the more those people come out, it doesn't have to be a congressional hearing or anything like that. The more people come forward, the more people are going to feel comfortable coming forward. And I think it's just going to be a, snowball effect until they're like, okay, listen, hello, is this thing on? And then they got to do a press briefing,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to play my small part in, just like getting as many people as possible to go, talk about this stuff. Yeah, I've seen some stuff.
Yes,
and,
sir.
getting it out there so people can feel open to talk about it and go, well, look, my hero talks about it, and that guy, and, I really like that guy, and he's talking about it. So why can't I? He's a successful guy, and he's, is it in the, like, do you have sightings over there that make it into the press, or is that, like here, if I type in locally,
there's the sensationalist sighting. We had a weird purple light that made it into like the what's it called, like the pop culture space. Like people were posting a giant purple light somewhere out towards a place called Silicon Oasis. But then somebody debunked it and said it was some club opening that was just projecting their purple laser out onto the thing. But no, not a lot of sightings that I can say out of here. I don't even know, honestly. I don't know if there is an pan-Arab, Morocco to Iraq, all the way west and all the way east kind of group, like a MUFON or like even a chapter of MUFON or any of those things. I think maybe that would be cool to start. Maybe, food for thought. But there isn't, I'm sure, across all of those places, Egypt with its history, Morocco with its desert, that I guess would be able to see something. They don't have a place or people to report it to. Do you know what I mean? So no, not a lot of sightings that I would say are in the public sphere.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I know that I can type in an area in where, like, I'm near where I live, and there'll be something in there. It will be the more sensational press, but there'll be something. That is interesting. I guess that's part of the algorithm, isn't it?
And I wish it, and I honestly wish it was bigger here, because I think there is a lot of stuff that happens, and I think a lot of the stuff, religiously speaking, I would say not religiously. Theologically speaking, that comes out of here, Jimmy, like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of Enoch and all of the stuff that you look at from a secular perspective. Remember, you put it in your top 10, and I think you put that collection was bang on, some of the best stuff. Remember the Jerusalem one? Yeah. And everybody was like, oh, that one's been debunked. I'm like, how? Tell me where. Like, they're like, some students did it with that looked pretty legit to me, and it moved exactly the same way as all of the orbs that we know and see with the the ones that do the crop circles that you've seen. I think there is, I don't know what the right way to say this is, but I think there is a theological connection. Tucker Carlson was talking about it with Joe Rogan, with a guy called Sean Ryan, and he said, and he's plugged in, like he's I think one of the most plugged in news commentators. He said from all the stuff that he's seen with 4-star generals and 3-star generals and stuff like that, he said, I've done enough digging to where I don't want to dig anymore, and he thinks that this is a theological phenomenon that needs discussion. So I think here regionally, with it being where it is globally, all of the Judeo-Christian foundations, the Indian subcontinent that's super close, I think there is that kind of connection somehow, somewhere, but nobody here talks about it really.
Yeah, it's so strange, isn't it? So strange.
It's not.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's not strange, because it's the same here. Like there's a smaller group of people that talk about it, but I guess it's because we know where to look. Like, I know what newspapers cover it, I know what online sources cover it, and because of that, it picks up on the algorithm, doesn't it? Like, okay, you're looking at this, so I'll show you some of that.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those. It's the same with the Americans. Americans they'll get so much of it, but it's because there's a number of cases in America, and because of that, there's the whole pop culture that goes along with it. So it's built into the algorithm. Yeah. You've got whole restaurants that are designed around UFOs, and whole Roswell's just UFO town, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I think that the government here is super progressive. By the way, they have a minister of happiness. They have a minister for artificial intelligence, like a minister, a minister and a ministry. So I think if anyone in the Arab world was going to do a ministry for, what's the word? Not artificial, not extraterrestrial intelligence, for off-world tech, whatever it is, just come up with a name. I think it would be done here first.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think we need a Ministry of Happiness here in the UK.
Yes.
I think we need some of that.
Listen, you do the Ministry of Sunlight, but anytime you're flying through Dubai, if you're doing Emirates, if you're doing London, Emirates, anywhere else, stop by for a plate of barbecue and a good convo.
Yeah, dude. I mean, how do you? All right, listen. Let's park the UFOs for a second. Okay, so I like to think that I'm quite good at barbecues. I mean, and clearly not, because you know you're an expert over here. You know, I think that's one of those things. Is like every dude's like, hang on, just step aside.
Yeah,
leave the barbecue to me. I'll sort this out.
Yeah.
But you are obviously a whole different level.
Yeah.
How did you get into? I mean, that's quite a niche, isn't it?
So Texas barbecue, well, we make something called third culture barbecue, because I'm Egyptian born, Emirati raised, but trained in Texas at the oldest smokehouse in Texas. But it's one of these things that you make your first brisket and it goes horribly wrong, like atrociously wrong. And you're like, screw that, I'm not doing that again. And then the next day you're like, wait a second, what if I did X, change one variable? And then you're like super confident, you show up, Jimmy, you're like, oh man, I'm going to do this. And then it goes less than atrociously wrong, but still horribly wrong. So atrocious, horrible. And then you're like, man, I'm not doing that again. What a waste of time. Because it's 18 hours worth of mistake when you make the mistake, right? So that's a whole day. And then the next day you're like, oh man, what if I changed Y, one variable? Then 24-hour test. And then it goes terribly wrong. So atrocious, horrible, terrible. And you keep getting further up the ladder of the grade of as bad as you can get until it gets to be acceptable, right? So it was just I guess it was like, this piece of meat is not going to get the best of me. And then when I figured it out, it was something that was like just out of this world, phenomenally good food. And we were the only people doing it, which is why I was the first. I started doing it in 2014. And then it turned into, you know, just you're the only guy, you're the only show in town. You know, we got so good at it that it just caught on 2 years ago. Now there's like a smokehouse in every part of the city. But like the dawn, when they come, when they're like, oh, there's a new barbecue shop in town. I'm like, yeah, kiss the ring. You know what I mean? and then they can go on their way.
Nice. Yeah. Did I see a picture of Hans Zimmer?
Yeah. We fed Pogba, Hans Zimmer, Mo Salah, all of their highnesses here. What's it called? Jagard Piquet, Shakira, almost Conor McGregor, and then we got into an altercation with his security. So that barbecue that didn't go well. You know what I mean? Dana White, who else? A lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community. And I mean, the who's who of people when they come through here. Oh, Verstappen, the heir to the Chanel fortune, and the guys behind Porsche, Tucker Carlson, and who else? A whole bunch of guys, really. And when you put barbecue on the table, everybody eats. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, clearly they come to you for a reason. You know, this is the place to go.
It's not a pride thing. I think we make some of the best barbecue on earth.
Yeah. You must do. You must do.
Yeah.
You must do.
Yeah.
God, why am I so far away, man?
Listen, it's a 7-hour flight. There's a Manchester flight. There's a Heathrow flight. There's I think there's like 6 or 7 flights a day out of the UK. Whenever you've got. What do you do, by the way? What's your day to day?
Like electrical engineering. So
nice.
It's a posh word for electrician, really, but like EV chargers, EVs, renewables.
Okay. I used to be ELV systems for electronic access control and CCTV. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. How did you get into this? You told me you had the sighting when you went out to take your pets out, and you looked up. But does it go further back from that?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's hard to put my finger on exactly when it sort of. I mean, that was my first kind of sighting, but it's hard to say when it first hit me or when my interest was first peaked. But I was saying the other day that one of my earliest memories was I used to collect these basketball cards, like NBA basketball cards. And I remember seeing, so they were on a sticker, sorry, they were on a magazine stuck to the magazine. And near to the magazine was like an X-Files magazine.
Oh
And
yeah.
I didn't buy it. Like I did eventually, but I'd seen it every time I went to get the basketball magazine. I'd look up and there'd be a new story and every time I was like, oh, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
sometimes they're, a bit scary, but sometimes they were like the UFO stuff, which I found fascinating. I love like the idea of technology and what could be,
Yeah.
So I think it's like X-Files. I think it's X-Files what
So
first did it, and then ET.
so 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the whole thing is a technology thing anyway. Like I don't think it's a, you know how they say that like if the general, like every time they talk about disclosure, why haven't they disclosed it? They're like, oh, the public wouldn't be able to handle it. I think it's a technology thing, and if the technology got out, it would change global dynamics, right? I think you think that too. Whatever the technology is that does what it does, and for you to see with the naked eye, upends our science. That energy can't be created or destroyed, that you can't go through dimensions, that you can't you can't travel faster than the speed of light, that all of that stuff. If you were to show up with a lighter in your hand and do this to Neanderthal men, they'd think you're a magician. And Carl Sagan said future technology will be so far in advance of what we currently understand that it will appear to us as magic, which is what we think it is now. But there is some kind of science to it that we don't understand. Somebody's super far ahead with it, like all of the new world, as they say, when they showed up with guns and the only thing they had was spears and axes. The guns looked like magic, right? I think it's a technology piece. I don't think it's a culture piece. I don't think it's a religion. It could be, by the way, it could be a religion piece, and we have no idea what they're talking about. But I think the majority of the disclosure to keep it quiet is a tech thing. With what's the guy? Do you remember? I don't know if it goes as far back as this, but you know the guy that was the head of the first head of Skunk Works for Lockheed Martin. Remember that famous quote of his?
Yes. Oh, I forget his name. What's his name? I remember.
But remember back then, he said that we've got the technology to take ET home. Everything you think of, we can already do. And he says this technology will never see the light of day unless through an act of God, right? And that's back then. And this is a guy who's like, straight from the hip. He's a military contractor. Why would he say something like that if that wasn't true? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which kind of makes you, by the way, which then I guess there's so many, this is my favorite subject. We could do this for like 7 years, but you know that, or it makes you think, which is, I think that's the first time we interacted. Remember, I was like, what do you think of this guy? I think this guy's a plant. You're like, no, it's not. And you gave me the reference and I was like, oh man, I stand corrected. But I think I have a sneaking suspicion, and tell me what you think. I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the stuff that we're seeing now is what the SR-71 was to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s tech that we actually have. And they're testing it, and the umbrella that is UFOs, they're like, oh, it's UFO. But I think it could be us.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely. It's unlikely that there wouldn't be at least some secret tech flying around there as well, being misidentified. We had that with the stealth bombers, didn't we? Like there was loads of UFO sightings. All of a sudden, they went, "Oh yeah, we've got this new technology."
Yeah, exactly.
Stealth bomber. And how long ago was that? You've got to think they've got some incredible stuff now.
And I tell people, remember with the SR, I think the SR-71 is the coolest piece of military tech to ever come out of anything. And that thing was flying in the 50s or 60s. They retired it in the 70s. So imagine we're 20, 24, 25. They have stuff that we have no idea about,
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Even they're even bragging about some of the kit, like Lockheed Martin are talking about having like the skin of the crafts can change on some of their new aircrafts. They can change the skin of it. I don't know how, but this is like a couple of years ago, they were putting sort of media stuff out about, we've got this new stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's like good for shareholders. But if they're saying that they've got it, then what if they got the secret?
Yeah, there was a guy, and I'll send you the link when we get off this on Instagram. There was a guy who was a Marine during an earthquake that happened in Sumatra. Don't quote me on the location. That went out to do helicopter evacuations of the people that were there in like very affected areas. You know what I mean? Like the US is going to save the day. And he stumbled upon a triangular UAP with 16 other guys, by the way, but being loaded by guys in black camo, like human beings. But he said it wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a plane, and that they had to like give up all of their gear and all of that stuff. I'll send you. Super interesting, and like you could verify the guy's credentials. So there is stuff out there that's being used and tested, and God knows what else. But I think it comes from, you know, this whole thing started when human beings started testing nuclear. Like there wasn't anything mentioned, but remember we had that Instagram convo about all of those medieval paintings.
Yeah.
Right. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you explain that? I mean,
oh wait, and the 13th century and 15th century painter that also drew a disc, that also happens to have lights, that also has to have a tractor beam. I mean, like, you don't, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and feels like a duck, if you put your hand in the bag, you don't have to see that it's a duck. It ticks all the boxes. The phenomenon, I don't think, is one thing. Like, you can't say, oh, how come it only shows up here? But when you string all of these things together, 100, not all of these people are crazy. You're right?
Yeah, it's like mathematically impossible. It's got to be. There's just so much data, so many people, so many sightings, so much footage, and people in positions to know, positions of authority. David Grush, you know, presidential briefings, top level. Jay Stratton, even higher level.
You watched that live?
Oh yeah, man. I was.
My heart was going a mile a minute. I was like, oh my God, they're doing. It was on the BBC. I was in Egypt. And it said, click here to watch live. And Jeremy Corbyn and George Knapp were behind him. And I watched that thing live, and to hear US senators and Congress people, they're like, well, tell us about the alien things that we recovered. I'm like, is this real? You know what I mean?
I had the same conversation. My wife was sat next to me. I was like, are you she's like scrolling through her phone. I'm like,
yeah.
Listen to what they're saying. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. But that was what.
That was 2 years ago. That was 2 summers ago.
Yeah,
yeah, that was 2 summers ago. Crazy. And all of that stuff, you'd think within 2 years. I think there is some part of the government that's pushing really hard for this to come out, and some part of the government that's like, man, if this comes out, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, I think so too. I think people have got that kind of distrust of the government, but I think that they are only humans, and they're going to have differences of opinion on there. And I think there are genuinely people in there that just want people to know about this stuff, and there are probably other people there. They go, we don't want them to know, and they've got their reasons, and they probably both think that they're doing the patriotic thing or whatever. But
correct.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the sort of transparency disclosure people win. You know, if I'm honest.
Me too. Me too. And I think we're just around the corner, and I think, you know, that there's so many pieces to answer. Like, they are this supremely intelligent, right, wherever it came from, right? Whether it's temporal, dimensional, or interplanetary, whether it is any of those three. What do you think it is, by the way? Do you think it's all three of those things, or just one of those things?
I've not managed to narrow my opinion down to anything other than everything. Like, I genuinely think, well, it could be interdimensional, because it makes a lot of sense. It could be extraterrestrial. It could be intra-dimensional. It could be like time travel. It could be drones. You know, just all of it. And then you can justify each kind of opinion, and you go, but what about just so many? And it could just be some weird kind of invisible science sentient thing that we just don't, you know, I don't know.
What do you mean? What's that last one? Because I'm with you on all of the ones that you said. What do you mean? You think
so? So there could be, I guess it probably falls into the interdimensional bracket, I guess, but it's kind of rather than it being like we have this imagination of a being, you know, whether it's got 3 fingers, 5 fingers, whether it's a robot, whatever, you know, you kind of, your brain takes you to that conventional, well, I can imagine what a robot looks like. I can imagine what a 3-fingered thing, because I watched that film.
Yeah.
But something that's essentially just energy, but like intelligent energy, you know, something like, because when you look at the videos of like the Foo Fighters and the videos the pilots are taking of these just balls of light that are bouncing around the sky, like
that's not a craft.
It's just like energy that's bouncing around, and there's so many different types, you know. That's what I think, like, because there's different types, maybe there's different things, and people are saying there's multiple different species.
I know, me too. Me too. The one that like I watch it just to get excited. Like if I'm having a shitty day and like I'm just like, you know what, there's bigger and better things out there. I watched the Paul Hellyer interview where he says, and he was the Minister of Defense. He's not Joe Schmo that just showed up, you know, podunk. He was like, oh, I was walking my dog and I saw, I don't know what. No, this was the Canadian Minister of Defense, said there's 7 races that have been visiting. And I was like, you know what I mean? But then there is the guys that, to your point, when they were talking about the school visitation, you know, the one in Wales, the kids that saw the thing come out of the craft and it was all black, and then the one in Zimbabwe was silver, and then the one in Lonnie Zamora's was all white, and then there's the one that's, I think, bananas, but I don't know if it's true, but like I don't know if it could, like, it's too good to be true. Did you read the book Walking with the Tall Whites?
No, I've not.
Oh man, I gotta send that. I gotta send that to you. It's a guy at Nevada S4, stationed out in the middle of nowhere, and supremely intelligent, top of his class, gets sent out to he's a weatherman, so he's supposed to do weather readings in like the remote Nevada desert, and stumbles upon what sounds like and looks like some warbling, stumbles upon a 7-foot tall thing caught in like a bear or like a rabbit snare. Listen to this. Gets it out. It disappears, like dematerializes. Then he's driving away, not able to comprehend what he just saw. This one's really far out there. I'm just telling you what I like. This is the data, or the story. Sorry, rather, not the data. And then something else shows up. It's the thing that he rescued, plus its mother. Okay, look exactly like us, human, very shiny, radiating light, but just 7 feet tall. Can communicate telepathically, and ends up spending 7 months with them, unbeknownst to his base commanders. Then comes back, breaks cover, says, "Listen, I've been doing this for 7 months." They're like, "Yeah, we know. We were testing to see what public reaction would be like if this were to come out." So he was the guinea pig.
Wow.
Yeah. I
no way.
My God. And he wrote a book about it, and went on to speak about it. He passed away. But essentially, one of the species look exactly like us, but are just super tall, which is, before Paul Hellyer said it, 2 separate stories, exactly like the Turkey UFO that you said. This lady was saying something, the other guy was saying something. The 2 don't know about each other, but the stories coincide. This was exactly the same thing. So Paul Hellyer was saying there's these really tall, human-like, look like us, blue eyes, and blonde hair. And this guy, and the 2 stories go well together. They two completely separate people, not related geographically, but they're both telling the same story. There must be something there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. And the Admiral Byrd story, and all of his diaries and the stuff and things he saw. There's I wish they would just get it over with and tell us already, because I'm just like, no.
This is it, but that's the fun part, is putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I found this piece, and then you found a couple of other pieces, and then I take, and you go, oh, you found those, and it's fun. You know, it is fun.
I wake up, and the first thing I check is your page, by the way.
Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm like, what did he post? And today you posted the Colombia video, and then you posted the China video the other day, and I'm like, I don't know if it's a show of force, but I think they're showing up more and more. Or is it just people have cameras more? I don't know what it is, but it's not like rare anymore, right?
No, it's not rare. I think it's just like a way that people can collect, like they can collect the footage. Like everyone's got, because a lot of the footage I'm finding is from like 10, 15 years ago that people have just sat on, or they found in some obscure place, like some YouTube channel that's not been updated for like 10 years or something. And they go, have you seen this? And someone would send me something, or it'd be like a little clip in a documentary or something. But it's like a central place. And because I think the popularity of it with the stuff that's happened in Congress, David Grush coming out, and sort of starting around 2017 time, it's really kind of started building up again. That people have created these pages. Say again, sorry.
Do you think there's more? Like, do you think do you think there's more sightings happening, or do you think just more people are coming forward?
I think that it's the same number of sightings, but more people are looking up and capturing it. More people are thinking, I got to get this on camera.
Yeah.
I think. I think it's the same. Yeah. I mean, I've got no data to kind of prove that at all. It's just a theory. But I do think that people are just looking up more. Well, I saw this thing and maybe they are thinking, whereas previously they had no reason to look up. Like, why would I look up? I've got to look at my phone because I've got to see what messages I've got, and I've got to check, Facebook or whatever it is that.
Yeah. What's some of the craziest stuff that you're getting? Like, are people reaching out to you, be like, man, I don't know what to do with this footage, and they send you stuff?
Yeah, every day, 20, 30,
Really?
40 times a day. Yeah.
Are people sending you stuff to discredit you? Like they're trying to send you fake stuff and you can tell?
I have to be honest, I haven't come across anybody that I feel has intentionally sent me fake stuff. Okay. But I have found, like, people will find things, they'll like do a screen record and they'll go, look at this, and it's like a really bad quality. It's copied off the copy after copy after copy.
Oh, yeah,
and it's like real bad. And they don't know who took it. They don't know where it was taken. They don't know what time or what cameras, or they don't have any information at all. And they go, what do you think? Share it. Credit me. You're like, well, I need more. I need more than that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those accounts out there that will just post anything
just
to get the clicks.
I make it a point of saying, bro, you should take this down. This is a serious subject. And if you're looking for clicks, post something else, but don't do this,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of my policy, is like, don't get me wrong, there will be some things that are conventional that slip through the net, no doubt about it. It's almost impossible not to. But like anything I think there's just fake, that's just a computer game or CGI or whatever, it muddies the waters and it discredits it, and I don't want to associate myself with that. But that's not to say I haven't probably in the past put things out I think that looks really compelling. The witness testimony is what a lot of the time gives me that yay or nay of, do I put this out or not? It's the stuff behind the scenes. Like, this is what I saw with my eyes. I appreciate the footage only shows this, but I saw this, I experienced this, I checked Skyscanner, I know where the ISS was. It wasn't any of those. It didn't capture it on the footage, but it went. So I'm like, okay, we'll put this out and we'll put some description in there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get a lot. I would say that a lot of the stuff that I get it's quite profound to people that took the footage, but when they send me the footage, quite often it is just a dot in the sky, and it's their explanation.
When I sent you mine, you're like, the video doesn't do justice for the experience that the person had recording.
Absolutely, exactly that. And it's really hard to kind of explain that, because I don't want to say to somebody, you've not had that's not a real experience, or you didn't have a profound experience. It's just I have to somehow package this footage for people to see it and understand it. And that's not to say it didn't happen or it wasn't real and profound for you. But if I'm going to share it with somebody else, I need like a whole package of your testimony, potentially like interviewing you. And because if I just show this footage, they're just going to see a dot in the sky and go, well, that's a star. And then it can close you down, and they're going to leave horrible comments, and it's going to have a negative effect on them. So I feel like it's better to just be honest.
Man, that's very good of you, first of all, but also very EQ to know that this person is expecting some kind of like aha eureka, like, oh my God, these people, and then people are like, bro, you're such a dink, and it's gonna have actually a negative effect. And man, good for you. That's fantastic. Good on you, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important, talking through these experiences, and they're very similar. People they have this positive feeling, they go outside in the garden, in the backyard, or whatever you want to call it, and they have this sort of open, I'm showing appreciation, I'm showing positivity, and on quite a regular occasions, things just pop up. You know, orbs will just pop up and
Yeah.
move in ways that stars just don't, or you know, the
Yes,
ISS doesn't
100%.
bounce around.
That's why I think when you just said it, I think there are some people that are more predisposed to it or more well connected, and I think it has to do with consciousness. There is one, I think the guy was having some kind of trip, but I'll send you the video. It's a pink orb above him. Did you see it? And he just keeps saying, thank you, I love you.
Yes.
Oh, have you seen that? And he keeps repeating, and it's
Jesse.
just huh?
I think his name's Jesse.
Yeah, and he just keeps saying, hello, beautiful ones, I love you, and it's just a pink. And I'm like, man, I want to do that. And I'm like, but wait a second, if I go out into the garden and say, hey, beautiful ones, I'm gonna get committed. You know what I mean? So I'm trying not to do that. But
Yeah.
I think there the Virginia one really got me in my head. Did you see the moment of contact with James Fox?
Yeah.
Did you see his I guess his like media tour where he went on Joe Rogan and he said, I didn't include this, but all three girls, when they interacted with the thing that was scared and said, hey, listen, I need help. And they didn't know what to do because here's this thing and they don't know how to interact with it. Whatever that thing was projected to them, I feel sorry for humanity. You guys don't even know what you truly are. Remember that? I was like, man, first of all, those girls aren't making that up, right? Neither is their mom because she turned down the money, right? But that got me thinking, and I think you and me and whoever's interested in it, whole cross section, like the whole thing, that thing saying that sentence makes you ask yourself that question, right? You're like, if you knew what you truly were, you're like, wait a second, what am I? I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's like, oh, you guys are, doing something, you're doomed to do something, but we have a greater purpose. I know that's so cliche to say, but there is something. And if we have the capability to hear these things, these intelligences, through ESP, because they don't have mouths, they're not talking. Does that mean we have that capability, or are we only receiving? Right? Can we do that the other way around? I think if you sat and like picked apart all of these pieces, I think it would be the most beautiful dish. If you were a chef, like I'm trying to put together all of the ingredients. There's the people that have said this is a religious thing. And then there's people that say this is a scientific thing. And then there's the people that say it's a cross between the two. I think if you put all of that together, there's a consciousness piece. You didn't get that technologically advanced being violent. And if they were, man, we wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? Like 50 years ago, this thing shows up, and there's other ones that come to show, to search for what is happening. Because they are more technologically advanced, it's like coming to an ant colony and being like, hey, boom, finish. Yeah. So I don't think you get to be that technologically advanced unless you have the character, the consciousness, and the fortitude. I don't know if it's fortitude to be good, relatively good, good in quotations. And I wish we were having that conversation. It's not just a technological thing. What are we doing to do away with our capability? Like, why is it only when we started using nuclear weapons, right? What is it about nuclear weapons that they're so interested in, by the way? Did you see what's the first remote viewer? Not Joe McMoneagle, the other guy. His name is Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think his name is Ira something.
Oh, is it Uri Geller? Are you thinking Uri?
Is it Uri Geller? Oh yeah,
I know he was involved.
Do you know the one where they give him coordinates, and even the guy, it's a double blind. They give him coordinates for a nuclear attack class submarine that no one's ever seen before, not even the generals in the room. Do you know this one?
No, I think I'm thinking of somebody else. No, I don't know
it's
this
a
one.
name like that. It's a I'll get you the name. But this guy, remote viewer, gets in a room. The military is totally trying to debunk him and say, listen, we got to stop wasting time with this remote viewing. It was called Project Stargate. We got to
Yes,
stop with
yeah, yeah.
Project Stargate. This is a waste of our resources. They get this guy in a room, get a guy who doesn't know what he's showing him, gives him a piece of paper. The 3-star generals that know what's happening are against the wall. They give him coordinates. He's like, okay, give me a second. He's like, wait a second, this is underwater. And they're like, okay, well, just, keep going. And then it's like thousands of feet underwater. And he's like, this is a submarine. And they're like, describe the submarine. He describes the submarine. And this is documented, by the way. Attack class nuclear submarine. And the generals are like,
Yeah, yeah. We need to
what?
tap into this.
Yeah, what's happening? And then they're like, okay, that's enough. We don't want to hear anymore, because they got scared, really. They got scared of what was being described to them, because only they knew. And then he's like, wait a second, where do you want me to stop? You don't want to know what's behind it? And everyone's like, what? And he basically goes on, and this is not on the record, he goes on to basically describe a USO behind the nuclear submarine, tracking it because it's nuclear powered. Yeah. So
Wow, man.
yeah, there's so much. I think Dr. Jacques Vallée said, if you opened this up to the scientific community, you don't know what kind of resources people could throw at this. Theologians, the Buddhist monks, and the Baptist preachers, and the sheikh from the masjid, and the rabbis from, the synagogue, and all of the people, all of the theologies of the world, like the people, the text that described the Vimanas that the Germans were trying to replicate, and there's an Amazonian tribe that were shown a picture of the Greys, and they said, have you guys seen these things before in the forest? And they're like, oh yeah. They're like, what are extraterrestrials? They're like, oh, they're these things. Do you see extraterrestrials in the forest? They're like, we have no idea what that is. And they show him a picture. He's like, those aren't extraterrestrial. Those are the ant people that come from underground. Remember?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So, and that guy doesn't have a reason to make that stuff up, So I hope you and I, in the next, I don't know, say a number, 2 years, a year, 3 years?
2 years. 2 years. 2 years.
2 years, 2 years. I think you and I in the next 2 years see some kind of like big, listen, we don't know what this is. If anybody in the public wants to get on this, and then they start Bitcoin mining just the data. Listen, we need theologians on this. We need scientists on this. We need engineers on this. And then all of a sudden, we're like neck and neck, not with them, but with every other science that's out there. You know what I mean? I think Eric Weinstein, he said it best. He said they've sabotaged physics for anybody that comes out to say this physics does not exist. And anybody that's trying to push the envelope of physics, the combustion engine was invented in the 20s. And you know what I mean? And we're still using the combustion engine 100 years later. Are you serious? So whatever the phenomenon is, I think it's all of those things. I think it's the human being, the consciousness of the human being. Are there latent skills and capabilities to communicate that we have no idea through science, not verifiable our science? And is the theory of relativity still valid, right? Are some of the biblical, Quranic, Torah texts scientific experiences that they had no idea how to describe? There's an Islamic story of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ called Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj in Arabic, and it's basically a trip. It's called the night journey in English. It translates literally into the night journey, and it's basically a light speed. When you read it secularly, right? It's a light speed journey from Earth to the seventh heaven, describing the 7 levels of heaven from what was then Medina to Jerusalem overnight, right? And then, like the book of Enoch, describing all the levels of things that he saw, bright lights and all that. That was a spaceship. Was it a spaceship? I have no idea, right? Solomon and the Book of Solomon and the Ring of Solomon and the things that he could do. Was that tech? Did he really have a ring? Was it a ring that, you know what I mean? There's so much there to unpack. They're not letting us do it because they're like, oh, you're not mature enough. Says who? You're not mature enough. I'm mature. You're mature. I think we're mature, but I think there's enough of us out there that are interested in it and that could really lend a hand, unless that hand is going to upset the natural order of things, I think they should just let us have at it.
100%, 100%. I mean, if they've got something, let's say a recovery of some sort, and they're very compartmentalized, where they're looking at it over many, many years, just bring in your engineers and your great, give some stuff to, like, I don't know, Elon Musk, love him or hate him, whatever. But if you gave a guy like that some tech and went, look, this is something special, make something out of that, and you give, to all of the people that build and create and science and great minds all over the world. I'm not just using Elon Musk as an example, but just because somebody that's got the resources to put private money into something, something like that, and make a huge difference for humanity. Why are we hiding it? Why are we hiding it?
I think that's a question. I think that you and I could talk about why are we hiding it for like a 12 episode series. Why they're hiding it, I think, is the big question. And I don't think it's anybody's guess. I think everybody knows, but there's nothing you can do about it. That's like why are psychedelics illegal, but alcohol and tobacco are legal?
Yeah. It's like the moral side of it. Like, I feel like, regardless of what their reasoning is, I feel like it's not their place to decide. Like the understanding of the universe isn't something that should be legislated against, or shouldn't come into a policy.
You should trademark that sentence. The understanding of the universe is not something that should be legislated. 110,000% correct. How can you tell me that whether there's a star system that harbors intelligent life or not, that fact you're keeping from me because you think your opinion is that I couldn't handle it? We're not kids. We're not talking about Santa Claus.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Oh man, this has been so much fun. Look, I'm conscious of the time. We need to talk again, man. I know that you're super busy. I really appreciate you talking to me.
No, man, my pleasure. This is the first time I've done this sort of thing, and super cool that we got to have a few back and forths before we do this. Would love to do this again with you. I think there's so much we could delve into. Like, we could pick one subject and just pick it apart until it's just balanced. But I'll send you some of the stuff, and we'll keep in close touch. I'll send you my number so we can keep in touch, and we'll do this again sometime.
Definitely. Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good to speak to you.